Good evening, everybody. Brilliant to see you all tonight. And I think I, first of all, ought to say that I really did think the Responder, well, it has been the best thing I've seen on telly all year. General agreement about that? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So that's good. That's got the evening off to a good start, so that's good. And it is fantastic to have Martin and Tony and Laurence with us as well tonight. I hope you have got loads and loads of questions. I am a bit of an outsider to television, so I'm going to start with some quite basic questions about how shows like this get made. And we've also got some clips to play you as well. But Martin, from your perspective, what happens? Do you get sent a script? Who sends it to you? How many times do you read it before you know whether you want to do it or not?
In this case, Laurence sent me the script. Laurence, who I've known and worked with a couple of times over the years, sent me the script in, I think, January 19. So in the good old days.
Yeah.
And he, you know, we've worked together a couple of times, almost worked on other stuff a couple of times as well. And so Laurence was very nice at keeping me in the loop with certain things that he had going on in his brain. And he sent me the script saying, I think you're going to like this. And he was absolutely right. It took in this case, it took one read to know that I was reading something that you don't come across very often.
And what made you like it?
It felt authored. It didn't feel... I mean, one of my things that I really... it's impossible to say to respond to for this, isn't it? One of the things I respond to... in reading scripts is when it doesn't feel like it's been written by a committee, and when it doesn't feel like it's been written to please 17 people who aren't involved in the script making process. It felt like a person had written a script completely to please themselves, and I thought, so I immediately got back to you, didn't I, Laurence, and just sort of said, yeah, I want in.
Let's be honest, there are any number of police shows, aren't there? We've seen them all. Why is this one so special?
Me?
Still you for the time being.
Still me.
Yeah.
Still me until
I get
told
bored
otherwise.
of you, Martin.
Yeah, and then she'll say it, and then we'll all understand what's happening. I'm new to this, so what makes it special, I think, is because it's not procedural. I suppose it's not kind of case of the week sort of thing. I don't feel, please God, it didn't feel cliched to me. It didn't feel like a lot of guys standing around saying police, TV, writing sort of stuff.
You mean Line of Duty?
Get her. No, I don't. That bloody Garvey. No, I mean one of those shows that does that. And this felt more personal. It felt more like the writer, whoever this person was. I didn't know at the time it was Tony. We hadn't met yet. I thought that whoever this writer is has got something to say. Not just, to be honest, not just about wider police culture or wider English society or anything like that, but just about the inner, stuff that we all go through. And you certainly don't have to be a copper to relate to a lot of this stuff. I wasn't at all surprised to find out that Tony had been a copper for a long time, and I think that has given us a massive amount of plus points, to be honest, because I do think someone else who hadn't been through that would find this very, very difficult to write this sort of detail. But I think it's that, for me, it's the lack of cliche and the true authored voice of it that makes it feel different to me.
Okay, Tony, you did write it. Could you possibly have written it had you not been a police officer yourself?
Do you know what, Jane? I don't know what I'm doing.
Great.
And
welcome to my world.
So, when people ask me questions like that, I always think, could I? I don't know. Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. I genuinely don't know. And when Martin says it doesn't feel authored, I go, I wonder what authored feels like. I don't know. And I try not to...
It does feel authored. It feels like you're the author of it.
Sorry, the other way around. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't listening. It's... But I don't know what it would feel like doing it another way. So, I just write it, and the other stuff that I'm working on isn't, police stuff, but it still feels the same to me. But so I think, I don't know.
Can we nail down when you were a police officer? Because you were a responder. You were that bloke, in this case, who got that extraordinary range of calls on any given night or during the day. But when was it that you were doing that?
From 1996 to 2008.
Right.
And that's why I look the way I look now.
He's only 27.
Yeah. Kicking indoors.
Yeah, okay. So during that period of time, you must have accumulated any number of stories, real-life experiences. How many of those made it into the responder?
What I did was, I wanted to protect the people whose doors had kicked in, kind of thing, or who had helped, or who had, not helped. And I wanted to protect them. So what I did was, I quite deliberately said, I'll use like slivers or something. It was like chopping vegetables, and putting them into a pot. I didn't want to just make cucumber stew, So I'm not going to take the whole story. I'll take a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, and put them all in. And I've had a little bit of feedback on social media of people who've gone, that was definitely me.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
It wasn't me, you know what I mean? It really wasn't like, there might have been a sliver of you in there, but, there was things. Because obviously, being a responder, you do the same thing a lot. Is weird as wild.
And you meet the same people a lot.
A hell of a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that comes across very, very strongly in the first episode, doesn't it? Yeah. Laurence, I've always wanted to ask an executive producer this. What is an executive producer?
I've wanted to ask that as well.
Tony asked me that question a lot, don't you? It can be many things, Jane. It can be many things. In this case, so I run a company that makes television programmes, and so my job is to find really good ideas. Occasionally to have them myself, but much more often to recognise a good idea from somebody else. And so a lot of my time is spent meeting writers. And then very occasionally, a lot of ideas come from discussions and ideas rather than you just getting a script. But occasionally, very occasionally, a script will land on your desk and you read it and you just think, this is why I do that job.
Okay,
and
so Tony stood out, but did you know who Tony was? Had you ever heard of him?
we run a mentoring scheme where we get very, very established writers, like the best writers in Britain, really, to work with one new writer that they love and to kind of help them a bit with their writing. And Jimmy McGovern, who we all know, who is an amazing writer up in Liverpool, we contacted him and said, will you be a mentor on our scheme? Do you know a writer that you love, who's new and would benefit from it? And he, I think, had just been sent another example of Tony's writing as an example. And he was meeting Tony for a drink the next night, a pint. And he said to me, so hang on, you're saying I can meet this new writer, you've got a bursary to give that new writer, so I can meet him for a pint and basically give him X £1,000. I said, that's exactly right. So he found Tony, and then you had a script you were working on, sent it to me. And when I read that early draft that Jimmy had done, you discussed with him a little bit, it was just such a thing of beauty because, for exactly the same reasons that Martin said, you felt you were looking at a kind of truth. And it's very, we all watch things that we love, or we read books that we love. It's very abstract when you put words together, what makes them truthful and what not. You could change a comma or an and suddenly it becomes like not believable. But if everything's in the right place, it does. And you can't, it's a bit like you writing, you can't put your finger on what it is. But when you read it, and I've read thousands of scripts, and you see something as good as the first draft of episode 1 of Responder, you just get a shiver up your spine. You think, God, this is amazing. And then when you said to me, I've always had Martin in my mind to play the lead, and Martin and I knew each other a little bit, I just had a hunch you'd respond in the way you did. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I think, and as you said, it's not just about you having been a copper. It's not just about that, because that's not the sort of sum total of your writing life, right? But so I think the details, I think the sort of the stuff that someone could pull you up and go, that's not like that. But we're safe with that because Tony was a copper. Yeah. But I think the stuff that I hope I'm not presuming too much, that Tony is really interested in is in inner life, right? And is in inner mental and emotional life. And I think that's, well, I'll let you say, but that's what I really liked as well, that it had its own pace. It wasn't loads of car chases and explosions and adventures and stuff. It was kind of, it had a sort of, it had a confidence to it that it wasn't going to satisfy you with everything you wanted by page 3 sort of thing. It was just going to say, this is what this page is, this is what's happening now, and it's going to go at its own pace. You're either going to get on board or you're not. And I really loved that. It wasn't trying to give you sugar as a reader and trying to make you turn to the next page. It just presented this an array of characters and situations that, in a sort of understated way, that makes you lean forward a little bit more.
So what we learn about in the responder is that all the grey areas, Tony, and that actually is kind of Rachel, your colleague. We see her entering as a naive, quite positive young woman, wants to do the right thing, and gradually the experiences that she has alongside Chris, Martin's character, just change her view of policing and indeed her view of herself in a way. And then we find out much more about her, but everybody here has seen it, so I don't need to tell them. But in your police role, how quickly were you compromised by what you were doing, would you say?
Compromised is such a
it's
word,
delicate,
isn't it? Yeah,
rather BBC phrase.
I remember doing. I did my probation with a couple of bobbies who take you out and like, you fill this form in and you do that, and then we're going to stop this car and we'll talk in this way to these people. And then I got in a car with a bobby called Colin, who, after I finished my probation and I come on, it was all shiny, and great and new and black hair back then. And we got in a car and Colin said to me, "I'll show you how to do the job now." Within 5 minutes, he said that to me.
Right.
And it was quite like, what? But then what I realised was that he wasn't breaking the law and anything he did, but he was having to be more pragmatic than what you would be if you were just going to go out and be a bobby. Because you don't ever do one job a night. You would literally go out, and every one of the day, you go out and say, "Well, I'm filling this form in," Whereas, like, what was happening was Rome was burning all around you. And you couldn't spend all night with a clipboard. You needed to go out and fight fires, And that was what... very quickly that you learn. And some bobbies it's absolutely really well, and some bobbies like stick to the way they've been taught, which is great, I'm not saying which one I was.
Of course not. No one's suggesting that. And we could talk about Liverpool, and we'll certainly talk about accents, but is Liverpool a unique place to be a police responder, would you say? Or is it no more unique than actually any other city centre in the land? I
think when I was doing the job, it was unique in that there was so few of us. There was hardly any bobbies out there. You come on a parade of a night and you'd have this big long table and you were like Putin, at a meeting. You was like, the sergeant was about 40 foot away and he was going home in 5 minutes, Yeah, what? I can't hear. And so it was weird to go out and think, I'm the sheriff here. I'm Gary Cooper, I'm going out I'm more like Gary Barlow, but... And then... But you have this thing where you end up being... Is it unique? I can't say, because I've only worked in Liverpool and St Helens, so I don't know, but I like to think it probably is. I think Responder, we were talking before this, and I was thinking about something we were talking about before, and I think Responder would have been different if it was set in Cheadle Hulme.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think
I'm not sure anyone would have watched it if it had been set in Cheadle Hulme.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, it would have been a challenge. Okay, let's talk about the accent before we will get onto the clips, I promise, in a minute, and you promise also that you get your chance to ask questions too. The part could have been played by a Scouser, and there are Scousers in the cast, but why? Not just because he's a great actor. Why did Martin get the part?
I saw a clip. I watched Fargo when he was in Fargo. And there's that great scene where he sends his girlfriend to her death when Lorne Malvo was in the shop.
It's not funny, but anyway.
It's not funny. But I remember watching it. I was sitting with my wife and we were watching it, and the pair of us looked at each other and went, "What a bastard."
So you thought...
Yeah, really. It's just brilliant, because he did it all, the fear and the deviousness and the arc, the character of being on all this kind of stuff, And it was like, oh my God, it was incredible, And I wasn't writing for television then. I think I was writing books, I think it would have been when that was out. I think I was writing novels. But I remember thinking, oh God, I'd love to write for him. I'd love to do something for him. And then when I met Jimmy... Jimmy's really funny, brilliant Jimmy. And the one thing about Jimmy, if we can just go back to Jimmy very briefly, is Jimmy's always says to me, "Brilliant this, but it's never going to get made." He's sitting there in his kitchen, never get made. Brilliant though, brilliant. Deliver like you make it. So when we got the commission, he was the first person that I went, "You're wrong, they're making it." But anyway, when I was sitting with Jimmy, all I could ever think about was him doing this part, because I thought, I've got one chance. I'm doing it with Dancing Ledge. I've got one chance of doing something with him. It's mad, isn't it? We got away with it,
And so, but you could have shoehorned into the script the fact that Chris Carson comes from. Where do you come from, Martin?
Everywhere and nowhere.
Oh, good answer.
Yeah. And we could have done.
Not Liverpool.
Not Liverpool. No.
We talked about it, didn't we? It was entirely plausible because a lot of the bobbies who I worked with were not from Liverpool.
Yeah.
They come from different parts of the country to come and work there. So we did talk about it, but I think you wanted the authenticity of it, didn't you?
Because he felt like he was a Scouser. It was written. Just from reading it neutrally, he's from there. So I was always very clear that if I couldn't do a proper Scouse accent, I wouldn't try. I would. All right, he's up from London doing, as you say, because the thing is, I was saying this all the time to them. What you've just said in a polite way.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you want me to do it? Because I'm not a Scouser, right? And I kept and I did wonder if, for a long time actually, I thought maybe Tony had been lumbered with me a little bit, because I thought, well, maybe because Laurence and I have a connection, I'm an actor who can help get things made.
Yeah.
And
sorry, Jeb, what do you mean by that? Just so.
Well, I suppose if you have a certain standing in the world, then you can go in to pitch something with a channel.
It's more likely to be commissioned.
It's more likely. People are more likely to open the door if you've done more than three things. Yeah. And so Laurence and I know each other, and I thought, well, maybe this has come from Laurence, and Laurence has said to Tony, this poor fucking writer, let's get Martin Freeman to do it. And Tony's who? Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I thought, well,
it's him from The Office.
he's gonna want his thing made, right?
Yeah.
But maybe I'm gonna be, a booby prize or something.
I'm sure you were.
Well,
no one here thinks you were.
I could tell you a story about that.
But that did cross my mind. Yeah, that did. Yeah.
Go on,
Well,
Tony.
we were in the office. Me and Laurence met when we had the script, and Laurence said to me, "What do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with the script?" And I said, "Well, it's fairly it's obvious what I want to do with it. You've got Martin Freeman on the books. It was me who said it to him. Why would you not give it to Martin to do?"
Well, yeah, which is lovely, and I didn't know that for ages. And so when I did find that out, that made me feel a lot better, because I was pretty much on the verge of pitching other Scouse actors to them. So going, are you sure this couldn't be X, Y, and Z? And so yeah, and obviously he wasn't writing with me in mind because I'm a Scouser or a copper or anything like it was. That's what I mean about Tony's writing. It's about more than geography or the job.
Sure.
It is about the inner workings of this character.
Just for the benefit of the audience, I'm not going to ask you to do the accent, but how did you have a vocal tutor or coach of any kind for this?
I had one session with the late, great Joan Washington, who passed not very long ago, and I'd worked with her on a couple of other things, accent-wise, and I'd done a good session with Joan. Then I did one session with Helen Ashton. So I'd done a couple of Zoom sessions, and apart from that, it was just me walking around the house, constantly talking to myself in a Liverpudlian accent, saying everything because I talk to myself a lot, so everything that I would talk to myself about anyway, I just said, in a Scouse accent.
Okay.
I just said "lad" at the end of it,
Yeah, no, that usually works. Yeah. Okay, let's get into the clips. We've got 3 really good examples of the complexity, if you like, and the moral dilemmas that are being played out in the course of Responder. This is a scene that, nobody will have forgotten this. This is Chris and Casey in Chris's police car in the underground car park. So let's have that clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Fucked.
Why is he so angry with you?
Because I robbed his cocaine.
Just pay it back then.
No, I robbed all his cocaine.
You are? Right, how much?
Like that.
Oh, fuck! What were you going to do with that much
I
coke?
was just in Willow's gaff and he was stoned, so I robbed it. I just didn't think it through.
Well, you should have.
I'm a smackhead. Thinking shit through's our strong point.
Right, just give it him back.
I can't.
Why not?
Because he got robbed off me.
Fucking hell, who by?
I don't know. I was off me cake. And now he's going to kill me because I can't give him it back.
He's not going to hurt you if I'm here.
Fuck off. I discussed that. It is, I'm dead.
cocaine?
Yeah.
You're a fucking nightmare.
Sorry.
Don't you dare. Don't you.
You're a fucking liability.
You are dead, lad! Do you hear me? You're dead!
That was a perm, was it? Ian Hart's hair. How has that happened? Is anyone prepared to take responsibility for Ian Hart's hair?
He's been shaving his head all his career and then just let it grow.
That's his real hair? Oh.
No, it's not. It's his own wig. He brought his own box. He genuinely brought a box of wigs up with him.
Did he?
So, yeah, Elizabeth, our fantastic hair and makeup designer, was going through possibilities for the look of the character. And Ian, being the old lovey that he is, has a fucking box of syrups that he brought up with him. And one was the most unlikely, what they call a ket wig in Liverpool there. Yeah. It's amazing.
It actually had its own trailer, didn't it? It was... No, the thing, if you go to Liverpool Echo, or in fact, just go on social media and type in ket wig. There's thousands of people out there with these ket wigs. My barber, who is cheap, she won't cut them because they hide stuff in them and stuff like that. The idea is that they put like little wraps in them and stuff like that. Of course, and she won't cut them because of that, in case there's something up there they've forgotten. She's got standards. I don't blame her. Have you seen my head?
Well, yeah, okay. I'm not here to make jokes about your hair, Tony, so that's fine. Let's talk about your relationship with... because is he your old mate from school, Carl, the shady drug dealer?
Yes, yeah. The idea was that they are slightly sort of angels with dirty faces. One becomes the goodie, one becomes the baddie sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, Chris, I think, is only just... a goodie, and obviously, if you've seen the show, he's often not a goodie, but he's gone that side of the law. Carl has gone the other side of the law, and they've stayed friends. And I don't, it's probably, as Carl says at some other point, we talk about the footy and that's it. They're not, it probably doesn't go very deep, but they've known each other. Carl was a few years older than Chris at school. I think someone he probably looked up to. He was a bit of a lad, and he's just sort of hung around, like a bad smell in a way in Chris's life.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of history, with Carl in the fact that Chris was out of uniform and now he's been bumped back to uniform. It seems that Carl had a sort of part to play in that, in a peripheral way. But yeah, they're just old mates. They're old mates.
And was it like that, Tony? Would it be possible to be a police officer in the centre of any major city and not have links to some of the people that you were likely to be arresting?
I think I see, where I live still, I see lads who I locked up who know me and we chat and stuff. And, those estates that Carl and Chris grew up on, they would have gone a match together, be Everton fans together, they'll go and, have a pint afterwards and talk about the football, And Carl is Chris's only mate, really. He's his only mate, and yet they will never have hugged. They barely will have shook hands once a year at Christmas. And I've got mates like that. My best mate lives in London. I met him when I was 4. I've never hugged him. So it's that thing about... I'm a lovey now, so I do a lot of hugging. Yeah. But Paul doesn't. But it's kind of... There's lads who I went to school with. On my Facebook page, there's people in prison. It's you're bound to, aren't you?
And it's a complex relationship for all sorts of reasons, but it's not the only one in the series. And I mean, Casey and Marco could actually have their own spin-off, couldn't they? Just tell us a little bit, Tony, because it's from your imagination. Tell us about Casey and Marco.
Casey and Marco are like just Josh Fannin and Emily Fern are just. When we saw them, didn't we? We all saw them on tapes, and immediately we were like, they are them, and the joy of writing for them characters is just amazing. But I've got this thing about, if you've got more than 2 lines, you should be able to have your own show, and they could have their own, they could run for 30 years. They could be EastEnders, them two. I absolutely loved them, and yet the world's full of them. I was walking through Liverpool on what day is it? Wednesday. talking to a Casey who was trying to bum a cigarette off me. I don't even smoke. She spent like 10 minutes with me telling her I don't smoke, and she didn't believe me. And it was Casey. You just look at it, you just think...
I was going to ask you about that. I was in Liverpool on Monday, actually, and there are a lot of... there is a problem. I mean, there's no denying the fact. I mean, it's happening in London too, but there are more people on the streets now, aren't there? And so I've noticed it in Liverpool.
And I didn't want to make them caricatures. I wanted them to be real. You know, I didn't want Casey to be this like grey smackhead. You know, who just is like this one diamond just to save Martin's. You know, I wanted them to have their own show. That's not because I want to write it. I just wanted them to be that deep that we could go with it. You know?
What comes across brilliantly is that, yes, it's police work, but there's also an enormous amount of social work in police work, actually more than police work sometimes. Is it like that? For real?
Oh, absolutely it is, yeah. Absolutely it is. Yeah, you think, how many times you lock someone up? Probably, I don't know, a couple of times a week. How many times do you actually pick someone up? It's over and over and over again. Pretty much every job is a crisis. And you're having to fight that fire there and then.
And they're sort of petty, domestic type situations. What, 50% of the time, more than that?
Probably more than that, really. Yeah. And domestic can mean a lot of things. It can mean like neighbours, or it can mean, you know, but little. I don't know the figures, you know, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but it's a huge amount of jobs centred around a very small group of people that aren't getting the support that they need. And it's the police, paramedics, fire service who have to pick that up, you know. It's just bad management,
and
really.
we all know that the situation is going to get potentially catastrophic, isn't it, over the next year and a bit. It doesn't actually, but that's cheered everybody up. Right, we'll move on.
Good second series, though.
Yeah, no, well, I should have mentioned that right at the start, so you've well done. The second series is going to happen. Definitely. We know that, don't we? Looking at Laurence, yes. How many episodes have you actually completed, Tony?
I first drafted 2, and they have to go past the boss very soon.
Is that Laurence?
Well...
Or his boss?
Yeah. No, we're all a team, so yeah, we're all gonna... But when they're ready to go out into the world, we'll all have a look at them and see. When I get all the spelling mistakes out.
And how quickly did the BBC come back to you and say they wanted more?
I mean, they loved the scripts early on, didn't they? And so they've always been very, very supportive about it. But I think when they started seeing edits of episodes coming in, and the kind of 3 people who had the kind of main power at the BBC work with were the head of drama, who's Piers Wenger, our commissioning editor, Mona Qureshi, and then Charlotte Moore obviously runs the whole thing. And then Charlotte, normally only
I never remember her title. It's head of...
I think she's director of television.
Content, yeah.
And normally she only watches one episode, like I think 1 or 2 episodes of a series, but she loved the early cuts of Responders so much. She kept asking Mona if she could see later and later episodes. So Mona would call me and say, it's a really good sign. Charlotte normally only wants to see the first episode. She's not on episode 5. There's never been had before. So, but I think they've always wanted to do more, but they commissioned it a bit earlier in the year.
Okay, well, that's good. So the audience here will just want to know when it's going to be on the telly. But I guess, is this partly because Mr. Freeman's quite booked up? Is that right?
We don't know at the moment. Yeah, we're just trying to get everyone together, and it's really led by the scripts, isn't it? And so when the scripts are ready, you know, that's when we'll do it. But yeah, as soon as we can.
No pressure.
Get a wiggle on, Tony. Yeah, people are waiting. All right, let's. This is a second clip, which is. This is Chris talking to his wife Kate on the phone, and I think it's fair to say there is a high divorce rate in the police force, isn't there, Tony? Do you know what percentage of police marriages?
Well, it was 100% with me, but it's quite high. It's quite high.
Okay. Well, this clip will illustrate some of the challenges. Here we go. Let's have the second one.
Hey.
Can you talk?
Yeah, just setting off. You okay?
Tilly's still awake.
Why?
I keep telling you, lately she's getting out of her bed and getting into it as soon as you leave. She won't sleep when you're on nights.
Sorry.
You, think we should talk about your therapy?
Right, yeah.
Your sessions finish this week, and I was thinking maybe we, Could you ask for more sessions? Maybe we could both go.
Look, they won't give me more.
We could maybe go private. Could you us both good?
No. Darling, I don't think it's me. You know, just sitting there talking, I feel like I'm wasting her time, my time.
Talk to me then. You are disappearing. These last few months. You won't take my hand.
4-7, Delta.
You won't take my hand when I'm trying to pull you back. I am sick of trying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you take a look at a report of a sudden death for me, please?
Kate, I've got to go.
I'm sorry, okay?
And that, is that just before the scene where Chris goes and... The thing that actually really leapt out at me was when your character drank the soup.
Yeah, it's just before.
I was absolutely... It was such a brilliant detail, that. Just explain, Tony, about that, just in case anybody's forgotten that, because that's what Chris goes on to do, isn't it?
It's when Chris goes to a sudden death, an old lady who's died. Just by the way, Tim Meelan's the director. How brilliant is that? He did a fantastic job.
Is that shot on? Is it Everton Brow?
It is Everton Brow. Yeah, well spotted. Yeah. It's
local knowledge there.
Yeah. Just get Everton back in there again. The suit was kind of... There's a profoundness about dealing with a dead body, but there's also mundanity in dealing with a dead body, you know, because you're in the middle of this, like, scene that it's somebody's life has just come to a full stop, you know, and everything is just left and floating and all this kind of stuff. And Chris has lost his moral compass in a way. He respects the body, but he's lost his moral... he's so wrapped up in himself that he doesn't realise that he's being weird, you know, and sitting on the couch next to it and stuff. And that was, you know, something that, you know, it happens. It's people lose the way. And then when he steals the woman's soup, the old lady's soup, I can't remember her name, but Mrs.
Well, I remember the soup was pea and ham.
Pea and ham, yeah. But you got to love a bit of pea and ham is the line, you know, because that's what my dad always used to say. And it felt like a really simple way of showing that this is a guy who doesn't realise how far he's gone, you know. It was like, sooner than have him do something terrible or have him something, just that little thing shows someone who's lost his way, you know.
And Martin, when you think about what it must be like to be married to someone like Chris, I mean, you wouldn't fancy it much, would you?
I don't think so, no. It'd be pretty hard. Yeah, it'd be pretty hard because
she's really trying to reach him.
Yeah, she is totally. Yeah. And I think it felt to me always like he wasn't trying not to be reached, but he had just literally shut down. He was absent. You know, he was physically absent a lot of the time, and emotionally sort of unavailable in that way that I think a lot of people end up when they're completely consumed by their work. You know, or they're in just part of their life where they're just... I would imagine it made me think a lot about what it would be like to be in this job. I think you would have to lobotomise a big part of your brain to stay human, I think. And I think he has to cut himself off a lot in order not to get too affected by things, I think. And one of the first sort of casualties of that is his marriage.
Yeah. And you mentioned that your marriage, there's nothing funny about this, but it did end in divorce.
You say that.
Well, okay. When you were in the police. Was it inevitable because you were just preoccupied or not there or worn down by it?
Probably, yeah. Probably. I mean, you know, looking back on it, we're good mates now and stuff like that. But looking back on it, yeah, I think, as Martin says, you just become horrible to live with. It's almost as bad as being a writer. you become this thing locked away. It's just I'm locked away in my office now. It's like you become this thing removed because you use up all your emotions of a day.
Well, I just want to add that I think one of the reasons I think the responder connected with people is because it could have just been relentlessly bleak, isn't it? Because you're dealing with someone who's closed off. But the beauty of running it through Martin and what you brought to it is you see that closed off person that is going to a very dark place, but then you see glimpses of this other person all the way through. And the great thing about that scene you're talking about, Jane, with the dead body and the pea and ham and the kind of awfulness of that in a way, was you've then followed by the scene where Chris is with the grandson of that woman who's really upset, and also dealing with the fact that he's got a drugs dealer saying that he's going to expose him professionally if he doesn't do what he says. And he comes back in and he looks at that kid and then gets up and reaches out to him, don't you? And that moment, and I remember in the script when we were talking about why the script was good, there was this portrait of this man that was sort of collapsing in a way around you, but then you saw that moment of shared humanity with that boy and you thought, I really want you to make it through, mate. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. He always struck me as
what you brought to it.
Well, thanks, but it's also, I think he's written as a decent character. He's not a bad person. He's definitely lost his way, but no, I was always rooting for him. Yeah.
Do police officers now get really good mental health support? Because when you were a copper, I can't imagine. I mean, people now talk about their mental health so frequently. I've got to say, there are times when I'm nostalgic for the times when people. I mean, you can't say that, so don't quote me. But you know what?
Keep it in.
It's great that we're being more open about our mental health. No, it is, Tony. But when you were in the police force, was it ever discussed? Did anyone ever say to you, "Come on, you know what"?
It was seen when I was doing the job. I'm sure it's better now. But I mean, I don't think it's perfect. But because I think the emergency services are under, everyone is, not just the emergency services. I think everyone's under incredible pressure at the moment. But and also so relentlessly bleak in it. You know, they open the paper, it's just awful. But when I did it, when I was a copper, it was seen as you were playing a card to get a few months off. You know, and it was seen as being a thing like that, like. I had one job, a very bad job. I won't say what it was. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible job. And I was sitting in a car with my colleague, and he looked at me afterwards and said, "Hey, it's bad that, wasn't it?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "You all right?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm all right, yeah." And he went, "How are you?" "Oh, no, I'm sound." And that was the closest we got to actually ever, in 12 years, actually saying to each other, "Are you all right?" You know. And I think, I'll be really honest, if I'd have said to him, "Not really, no," he probably would have gone, "Nah, don't behave yourself." And we would have just gone somewhere else.
But at the end of a shift like that, you go home, and what do you do? I mean, I wouldn't know. Where do you put it all?
I used to try and lose it in the car on the way home. I'd drive home and just try and shed it on the way home. But then there's a weird thing about, like, if you go through certain kinds of bad sudden deaths, that you still smell them, you know, or you can still hear people and stuff. It's weird. So you never fully, I don't think. I'm sure that I work with a guy, again, Colin actually, who said to me, it's the same guy, weirdly, who said to me, "I'll show you how to do the job." Colin did that job for 30 years. And we'll go home every night. And ostensibly, I might be wrong. Like, I don't know, he might be carrying crosses to this day, but I always got the impression that Colin just shook it off and just did it. So some people can do it, I suppose.
Let's have the final clip, which is Chris in one of his therapy sessions. Let's see this one.
All right, we'll try something different.
I want to talk.
Of course.
Yeah, but I can't. Because I'm wrapped up in here, you know. Look, I want to speak. I want to speak. Christ. I want to believe in you. That you can help me. But I've got another week of nights stretching out in front of me. And I can feel it. I'm going to crack.
Then let me help you then. Tell me what you want from this.
I want to be a good Bobby. I want to do good things.
Yeah.
I want to be normal.
That is, do you find it hard to watch sometimes, Martin? I mean, do you, because what mood were you in? Do you remember when you actually shot that?
Focused. Yeah.
No, I'm really, I honestly, what does that actually mean, just for those of us who aren't?
I suppose, because I'm not particularly what the shorthand, the shorthand thing of method, I'm not particularly like that. Like, it's not like, you have to talk to me as the character for the next 6 months. But there are times when if you don't, if you don't get focused, you will pay the price, I think. Especially, that's very, very exposing.
Yeah,
right?
that's what
so
I mean,
every single thing you're doing and everything you're thinking is being picked up. So if you haven't got yourself in the right frame of mind, as a performer, and it's not like I had to go through every person I'd ever lost, and I wasn't taking myself through sort of Stanislavski sort of exercises to remember being in grief or stress or whatever. But with things like that, I wouldn't be chatting much before. You know what I mean? I'd sort of want to just be quiet, I think.
Yeah.
I want to be quiet. And you sort of, in my experience, with those particular things, I shrink. Funnily enough, because I'm seeing a shrink. But I make myself smaller.
Yeah.
And contained.
Which actually, for Chris, is strange, because when he's bulked up wearing all his gear, that's what another thing I wanted to talk to you both about, really, is the amount of stuff that you have as a police responder. You're walking around, it's almost like a robot, aren't you?
Terrible, yeah. I mean, Adeleo said to me, who played Rachel,
yeah. She's
we
brilliant.
were both getting into the car one time, and she said, God, I can see why they're pissed off. Because it's a schlep.
Yeah.
You're just always with this stuff, and you sit down and something's gone up your arse, and then it's like you've got to kind of get stuff out the way to put your seatbelt on and everything. It's it's a lot. It's aside of everything. So psychologically, it's a lot. Emotionally, it's a lot.
Yep.
Physically, it's a lot as well.
And then you've got to actually encounter the public. And, they're not always. I mean, Tony, Scousers are wonderful people, as we all know. The most creative, the wittiest, all the rest of it. But they come. You meet some hard cases as well, don't you? You must have done.
Yeah, you do. But that thing about the kids is really funny, because you jump out the car. If you've been driving around for 3 hours and you jump out the car because someone's run away, and invariably you fall over within about 5 steps because you're top heavy. So you do about 5 steps and bang, face plant, get up and then start running again. You just pray no one's got it on the phone. But you meet hard cases, but it's part of the job, isn't it? It's scary. It is scary.
One of the great things, I'm from Liverpool, I should say, but one of the good things about the Responder was that it's there is a limited number of Scouse cliches in the Responder, which a lot of people from the area, I think, appreciated. So, because it's not, although there are some desperately poor parts of Liverpool, there are also sailing clubs, golf courses, and beautiful countryside.
Yeah, I was desperate. I mean, being a Scouse cliche myself, I'm quite lucky, but it's being what I was desperate that we didn't have the Liver buildings in, we didn't have the cathedrals in, we didn't have the waterfront shots.
There is a sneaky shot of at least one.
I know, I went off my head when I saw it, but it was, the idea was, we showed it from, there's a Walton to Walton, I always say, which is, Walton's quite a deprived area in the UK, and Walton is one of the nicest areas in the UK, and I wanted to show all of that, to show the city as a rounded place, and not, I love Carlow Lane, but not bread. One for the kids, but what I mean? They were all right, to be honest with you. Off the record, a few have got in touch with me who I knew, old area commanders and stuff like that, and old bosses, and they've been really supportive. But I think it was difficult for them, I mean, it's bound to be difficult, but there's a truth in it, there's an honesty in it, and I think that they were kind of cool with it.
Yeah,
definitely, Yeah, I think we did them a few favours as well. I don't think they realise it, but I think we painted the sympathetic picture.
No, I don't think so. No, I think that directing for me is a sort of it's a very future question, and I occasionally talk about it. I very occasionally think about it, but I have no imminent plans to. No, I don't think I would have the confidence to do it yet, and I don't think. I literally wouldn't know what I was doing enough yet. I would be able to blag it, and I know a lot of for camera, a lot of directing is delegation. I know that, but you do still. I think you have to have more. You need a bit more than just delegation. I'd be doing a lot of delegating at this stage. So I think I would, do a course or something. I'll do a course. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, so I wouldn't have the confidence to do that yet. But I am very opinionated about stuff. Like, I'm very opinionated things if I don't think they're right, and if I think things are right or not, I'm all over it. But I think it's quite different being in charge of like 80 people on a set. I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy having a vote, but I don't necessarily want to be the one steering the ship. No.
We had because we talked about it. He says he doesn't want to be a director, but he was very much involved in the creation of the show. I think he played a large part in that and creating the look and the feel of the show. So whilst we didn't have specific, set ideas, we had an idea what we wanted it to be. Like, you played a big part in that, didn't you?
Well, actually, what was really interesting is that very early on, Tony said that one of the things that defined the job when he looked back on what it was like when he was doing it was not the encounters with all the people we've been talking about in Liverpool, but actually with those moments where you're just doing nothing and you're alone and it's very quiet and you might hear a dog in the... And so I think we did a first dub, didn't we, which was quite noisy.
Yeah.
And you really, made a big point of finding one or two places we just got rid of all of the sound and just had that moment with the dog in the background. Particularly when you're outside at the beginning before you see Marco, and there's just that moment, isn't there, where you're just kind of...
Because you talked about, you liked that, didn't you? You liked the space in the script, didn't you?
I loved it, yeah. That was one of the things that really appealed to me, was because it wasn't busy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one for the Scousers. It wasn't full of stuff. There was space in it, and it was an economical script. It wasn't trying to wow you with loads of flashbangs and all that. And there was space. There was quiet in it. I like that.
What's that? Is that hard for an actor, or is that? Do you think? Oh, great. There's not much script to learn.
No, so, depending on a well-written script can have loads of words in it or none. So you want to play something good, or you want to play something interesting. Whether or not there's words in it is a different thing. But I love saying Tony's words, but I also just like playing those scenes, and a few of them had very little dialogue.
Yeah.
The synthesis was a weird thing, really. You loved it, didn't you? And initially I wasn't all that keen on it, to be honest with you. But then, as time went on, I warmed to it. When I watched it, because I sat like in a hotel room watching the show, and I really warmed to it after a bit. I did. It becomes something which I got into. Although I did get shouted at on Twitter by people going, "Oh, you've triggered me tinnitus and all that." Turn it off.
Well, the first two episodes were directed by Tim Mealance, who's a wonderful director, who, again, is very good with economy. So he won't feel the need to overload you with stuff, but he'll just say something. I won't say what he said, but there was one in episode 1. There's a scene where he came up and said something in my ear that was so fucking ridiculous, but brilliant. Right? It made me laugh so much, and it was a scene where it wasn't funny scene, but it was so preposterous what he said to me. He said, "This time play it," and I won't say it. This time play it like X, Y, and Z, and I was like, "Man, what the fuck's going on in your head?" But it was. He is quite like me in that throw a load of stuff out there. Because if you try something, it doesn't work, no one dies, right? Nobody fucking dies. So you may as well... My thing is always give the editor as much choice in the edit in 6 months' time. Because I don't even know how the scene should go until you try it, right? So there are always more than one way to skin a cat, and I like a director to be open to that. I am always going to demand my freedom and my space, and I want to have that play with the other actors in there. I want us to be free, actually, you know. Beyond that, it's about how well you've cast people, because some people shouldn't be free. You know, some people, you got to fucking lock them down and go, no, don't you try this shit. But if you've got good people in a cast, as we did, people can try stuff out, and that is when a truly lovely atmosphere happens, I think. So I think for a director, a mixture of just knowing when to speak, knowing when you don't need to, you know. And like for anybody, you don't need to prove the worth of your job. If you can do your job, you just do it. You know, you don't have to prove your place there, and just do stuff when it's necessary, I guess. I did confess. I did a thing called Confession, actually, where I was a detective.
Right.
That Jeff Pope wrote. No, it didn't really change my feelings about the police, no. I always knew it was a thankless job that I'm really glad some people want to do. Yeah.
I mean, Tony made the point earlier that when he was replying to the question from the guy who had been a policeman, that you thought it was actually rather sympathetic to the police. It's not been a great time for the police the last couple of years. I mean, let's be honest, some diabolical stories about their behaviour in this country.
Terrible stories and terrible people doing it, you know. It's absolutely awful. But I think even the biggest critic of the police would lean to the fact that the majority are good people doing the best in difficult circumstances, you know.
Not really, no. I mean, I don't want to sort of underplay it, and so I don't quite do the Noel Coward thing of just learn your lines and not bump into the furniture. But I do think there's a real truth in that. I really, really do. And I think a lot of the time that's why British actors get employed in stuff, because we might get on with the fucking thing quicker. I mean, that's a cultural thing, you know, to all my American family and friends. I don't, you know. But there are cultural differences. And I think that there's a real strength to just get on with it, because we got 2 hours, you know, and we haven't got time for you to, you know, get out of character and then back into, you know, like, it is more akin to athletics and sport, actually, than people would realise. You've got to do something, be physically prepared, mentally prepared. For me, it's about focus. It's about, you know, so I don't say that to sort of, to pretend, we all just turn up and 1 minute I'm looking at the crossword and then the next minute I'm, you know, like, sometimes, you know, some things don't take a massive amount of prep. They just don't. And some things really do. And I learned in an early episode in this, I didn't prep enough for for a scene that is in the show, unfortunately. But and I knew it, you know, as we turned over, I was like, fucking hell, I'm not ready. And I had to go through this relative humiliation of doing something in front of 80 people, knowing that I wasn't doing a good enough job. And I'm quite old now, and I should know better. You know, so I've been doing this a long time. So what I'm saying is, like, you can always be surprised by if you're not doing if you haven't attended to that detail enough. So I tend to look at it more as just be focused. Go away if you've got to concentrate on it. Go away, do something. But it's not necessary. I don't call it method really, because it's not. I think that's it's a misused term anyway, I guess. But it's not me believing I'm the character in some sort of weird transubstantiation thing. I know I'm an actor playing a part, but some things need more focus than others, is the truth. That's a good question. Honestly, there were so many, hence, you know, we're all bigging up this script, because there were lots of great scenes to film. I love the stuff with Carl. I love Chris and Carl's stuff together, because they've got that history and, you know, and they're playing for very high stakes. I like the stuff with Romy, my daughter, actually. Sorry, that's the actress's name, isn't it? Yeah, the stuff between Chris and his daughter is really touching, because that's where you see his human side. I like the occasionally hitting people. That was good. That was good. I like that. Yeah, I like sort of intimidating scallies. Yeah, I thought that was good. The guys who burned David Bradley's bed in the tunnel, and I like putting it on them. Yeah.
I wrote other stuff before this. The pivotal moment for writing this was sitting in Jimmy McGovern's kitchen, and Jimmy just throws soup down here. He's got this thing about soup. Have some soup. Have some soup. I don't want any fucking soup. Have some soup. Jimmy, I've had 3 bowls of soup. Have another bowl of soup. You can't work if you're not eating. All right, yeah. So we keep eating this soup, and he'd asked me to bring 3 ideas to the kitchen. And we got to know each other over a period of about 3 or 4 meetings with a lot of soup. And he said to me, right, bring your 3 ideas next week. So, all right. So I went away and I wrote these A4 sheets out, like, and like, this fucking helicopter crashing this one, you know. And this happens, and a vampire comes out the wardrobe, and it's amazing. And all this. And I wrote all these things down. And then Jimmy said, right, okay, we're sitting here with the soup, like fucking P&M again, probably. And he made me soup, and Jimmy's going, yeah, all right, what about that? Yeah, all right, yeah. And we got to like number 3, and he went, okay. He said, right, okay, that's your 2nd one, that's your 3rd one, that's your 4th show. Your 1st script is you. And that's what Jimmy does. That's Jimmy's genius in a way. That and the fact that he's a brilliant writer. But is that he's able to just like a laser go right into your soul and go, that's it. And I went, no one's going to watch a show about me, Jimmy. And he said, I've sat in this kitchen with you for 3 weeks, basically. Once a week for 3 weeks, sat in his kitchen eating soup, and he got to know me, and he realised that was it. That was the thing. Never get made. But that was the thing. That was the thing.
I don't want to put words into your mouth, but for any aspiring writers in this room, because you're an inspiration, because you didn't seem likely at various points in your life that you would be in this position now. So what do you do if you've got a great idea, or you think you are a writer for television?
You work. It's just such a terrible answer. This. It's like there's no secret other than you just keep working. You just keep working and you don't give in. I was telling him a couple of weeks ago, I've got a thing on the wall. I've got 2 things written on the wall. I can't tell you one of them. The other thing I've got on my wall is you will not be beaten. And I wrote it when I started writing for an online magazine about, 2010. I started writing for them. And I knew the minute I started doing it, because I wanted to do it when I was a kid. I was too thick, and then it took me till now to do it properly. But it was that thing about the minute I started, I thought, I will not be beaten at this. And I might be writing the responding when I'm 75, and you're doing it, like Albert Steptoe, going out in your police car. But I was just thinking, I will do it. I will do it. I will not be beaten. And that's what you need to do that. And you've got to go away and go, well, why hasn't it worked? Come back. I did a writers' room thing the other week, BBC writers' room, amazing. This fella come up to me and he went, oh, it's all right saying that, mate. I've submitted 15 times. And I said, well, it's no good doing that because you're not learning. You've got to adapt and learn and work harder. Submitting, it's easy. It's adapting, learning, working harder, and then getting in with a good exec producer. I'm just a car crash of a human being. I'm not even joking. It's like I've had about 50 jobs and I can't stick anything. So it's just that. I just kept changing and changing. Then I had a nervous breakdown. I was Chris basically without dealing drugs. I just had a nervous breakdown. I just hit that wall. And I wasn't getting the support I needed. I ended up being homeless. And the beauty of being homeless for me was I didn't have addiction issues. I just cracked up basically, and I was able to. The minute you've got nothing to lose, and that was when I thought, I've got one thing to do, and that is I wanted to be a writer. So I did it.
Because I've always wanted to do different things, So I didn't get into acting to do one particular thing. I guess however someone gets known is understandably what people associate them with, which I totally get. But that was never the plan for me. I liked doing comedic things. I always liked doing drama. And, you know, and the fact that I related so much to Chris, and from talking to Tony, we had a bit of common ground as far as demons were concerned. And it is, for every actor really who plays that sort of part at some point, it's a great way of exorcising them. Really, I mean, you know, you do it at work so you don't have to do it at home. It's very handy, actually. But yeah, it's you just want different flavours in your life, and sometimes you want something light, and sometimes you want something a bit heavy and a bit more meaty, you know. So yeah, I hope and pray I'll always have that sort of. I like being able to go from that playing pitch over there to then playing something that's a bit more fun, and then playing something that's silly, and then playing something that's, you know, really tortuous. You know, I love having that privilege. No, I never have. No, I haven't. Which I realise is what's going to prevent me from being seen as a great actor. I never have, and I'm really grateful I haven't. You know, because I think a big thing, and it's not judging anyone else who has had that experience, but I think I've got massive fucking perspective. I really do. I really, really like. This is work, right? And it's the most fun thing I could possibly think of being involved in. But people really are dying. It's just being like, I don't mean in Syria or whatever, but like, you know, everyone is going through stuff that is actually life and death at some point in our life. And it should be fun and it should be rewarding in that way. Doesn't mean at all that you're not taking it really seriously. But no, I've never. No, I mean, you get in a certain mood. If you're crying all day, right, then you're knackered. You know, by the time you go home, because you're worn out. But I've never taken a character home with me. I don't think, no.
You know,
you like husband and husband or husband and wife. You're in a car together, and you know everything about each other. You know, for 12 hours, you were stuck in that car. And you see your lowest and your highest, and you have fun, and you don't. It's the worst job in the world if you get in with someone who's boring. You know, honestly, who wants to talk about gardening all night, you know, something like, oh, God, I'm not working with him, am I? It's like, you know, and we'd all, like, get up the keys quick so we didn't have to jump in with certain people. But then you never know if you're one of them people that everyone's grabbing a key, so what do, you know? But, like, I work with some amazing female couples, absolutely amazing. I'd love to name one now, but he probably wouldn't want me to. But you know, and everyone's got different skills, but some of them were harder than me. It was not hard to be harder than me, but I mean, some of them were like proper, you know, get out and fight, and some of them were like, had brilliant diplomatic skills, and some of them but they were all just brilliant and enthusiastic and fantastic, you know. No, actually, no, that's not true. Not all of them. Some of them were rubbish, but because they were just the same as everyone else. You know, and you just in that car for 12 hours and you just want to get on with that person sitting next to you, you know. My weird thing was I got on more with the people who were sitting behind me than with the boys, but that's a different story altogether. That's season 3.
Well, I think most of us here would happily settle for season 3. So
you say that.
You need to get a wiggle on with season 2 at the moment. So thank you all very much for coming, and I'm really grateful to Laurence and to Tony, and of course to Martin as well for making the time to come too. So have a good evening, and thank you very much. Great pleasure. Thank you.